we return. You know, yesterday, Barack Obama, the traitor-in-chief, he announced that he would waive a federal law that is intended to prevent the supply of arms and weapons to terrorist groups. Now, for the record, one cannot legalize treason. No matter how much circular rationale is applied, you cannot legalize treason. Aiding and abetting the enemy has always been and always will be defined as treason. And yet, Obama announced that he will waive the federal law. Now, I gotta question the language here, because you cannot openly, defiantly waive a federal law when you don't have that authority. He's waived a provision of federal law designed to prevent the supply of arms to terrorist groups and clear the way for the U.S. to provide military assistance to, quote, vetted opposition groups fighting Syrians Bashar Assad. He cites an authority under the Arms Export Control Act and announced yesterday that he would, quote, waive the prohibitions in Sections 40 and 40A of the AECA, the Arms Export Control Act, related to such transactions. These two particular sections prohibit sending weaponry to countries that are described in Section 40D. The prohibitions described in Section 40D say, the prohibitions contained in this section apply with respect to a country if the Secretary of State determines that the government of that country has repeatedly provided support for acts of international terrorism. For purposes of this subsection, such acts shall include all activities that the Secretary determines willfully aid or abet the international proliferation of nuclear explosive devices to individuals or groups, or willfully aid or abet an individual or groups in acquiring unsafeguarded special nuclear material. Now, the law does allow the president to waive those prohibitions, quote, if he determines that the transaction is essential to the national security interests of the United States. See, this is how traitors use words. They use words to twist and tweak the truth. There's a guy named Sam Adams who lived a few hundred years ago. And he's got a quote out there which is very apropos in this moment. It goes, quote, how strangely will the tools of a tyrant pervert the plain meaning of words? How strangely will the tools of a tyrant pervert the plain meaning of words? And I would like to see that as a banner that hangs on the wall in the Congressional House, directly above the Speaker of the House and the Speaker of the Senate, or the leader of the Senate. And I would like to see that inscribed on a flag or in stone, someplace, some way that is immovable. How strangely will the tools of a tyrant pervert the plain meaning of words? Because what we have today is elected, I don't want to even call them representatives, because I don't think they're representative of anything except their own best interests. But what they do is they utilize a technique called verbicide to essentially twist the meaning of a word or multiple words so that they can fit their own agenda. They take the plain word that you and I would know and define as what you would have learned in school, and they twist that to mean something else. And then they use those in secret courts and legal interpretations. They farm tyranny. What do I mean by that? Well, like any farmer, they first till the soil. And they till the soil by fomenting a number of different, and utilizing a number of different tools. They till the soil by fomenting race concerns, by fomenting anger against the wealthy. Then they plant seeds in that tilled soil. And with those seeds, they know that the end result will be a poisonous fruit. And then they tend over it. And they work it. And they weed around it. They weed out the liberty that would choke that seed to death. See, a perfect example of that is the news that came out today that the administration, and we heard this from the Brennan, the head of the CIA, that they were not requiring employees to sign non-disclosures, and they weren't really giving them weekly, bi-weekly, or bi-monthly polygraph tests. And yet, there's a CIA employee who has actually gone to Frank Wolf. He's the representative from Virginia. And he claims that he's refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement, barring him from discussing September 11th terrorist attacks in Benghazi. And as a result, he's been suspended from his job at the CIA. Now, Frank Wolf went and called the attorney representing this CIA employee. And the attorney confirmed that that is in fact the case. That his refusal to sign a legal document barring him from publicly or privately discussing events that surrounded the Benghazi attack have caused her to have to negotiate with the CIA to protect our client. Now, I have a hard time believing that an attorney who has a law license would lie to a state representative, a federal representative, I should say, from the state of Virginia. Because, honestly, let's be honest, I mean, the idea of that person, that lawyer, lying to that representative, knowing that, you know, it's going to create a national furor is not particularly wise, right? The reports on the NDA are accurate, says Wolf. This is a non-disclosure agreement. We're getting people who call my office. He's also received other anonymous calls from other CIA individuals who are saying that either they have been pressured or suspended if they refuse to sign. He says, my office received a call from a man saying that he knew a CIA employee who has retained legal counsel because he refused to sign an NDA regarding September 11th events in Benghazi. Now, he said that back on September 9th. I called the law firm and spoke with the CIA employee's attorney, who confirmed that her client is having an issue with the agency, and the firm is trying to address it. Based on my past experiences with the CIA, which is headquartered in my congressional district, I am not at all confident that these efforts will be successful. He says, the NDA agreements are meant to instill fear in employees and to stop them from speaking to the media or Congress. Now, I gotta tell you, anytime our own government is operating in this sort of a lawless manner and striking terror into the hearts of people who work there, much less the citizenry, anytime you have a president who waves the ban on arming terrorist groups, utilizing authority which he unilaterally claims for himself, we are in a state of tyranny, people. We are living a window in history. We are experiencing firsthand what someday will be looked upon in history books, the same way that you would look upon a history book today in horror as the descent into Nazism is described to you, or the descent into Chinese communism, or the descent into Russian communism, or Italy's fascism. Just as those events in history involved literally millions of people who participated or were aware or subjugated or what have you, we live in the same scenario today. What's happening now will be history. The question is, will history be written by patriotic victors who will define it and accurately represent it for the treason that it was, or will they win and write us off the books? I do know this. Without your participation, we will lose. And we will go into that dark night. Perhaps some of us not quietly, but into that dark night we will go. And when the lights get shut off and the last person has left the room of liberty in the United States of America, the memory of all that came before us and all those men and women who put their lives, their honor, their treasure, and their efforts on the line for us will be lost. The liberties of our country, the freedom of our civil constitution, are worth defending at all hazards. And it is our duty to defend them against all attacks. We have received them as a fair inheritance from our worthy ancestors. They purchased them for us with toil and danger and expense of treasure and blood, and transmitted them to us with care and diligence. It will bring an everlasting mark of infamy on the present generation, enlightened as it is, if we should suffer them to be wrested from us by violence without a struggle, or to be cheated out of them by the artifices of false and designing men. Samuel Adams. Are we being cheated out of them now by the artifices of false and designing men? Oh, you betcha. Will someday they be wrested from us by violence? You betcha. Will we give them up without a struggle? They are farming us. And they are farming tyranny. They water it. They tend it. It is growing. It is maturing. They're nurturing it. Finally, ultimately, they will pick the poisonous fruit of their treason. Will you participate? Will you be a part of that? Or will you be one to fight? Because Sam told us, he made it very clear. I don't know how you can misconstrue that statement. How strangely will the tools of a tyrant pervert the plain meaning of words. When you see people like Lois Lerner, Eric Holder, John McCain, John Boehner, John Kerry, we know those men, and we know them because their face has already been marked. They have condemned themselves with their own words. They have condemned themselves with their own statements and their own actions. These men and women, Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, these people have shown us by their actions they are untrustworthy, that their motivations are diametrically opposed to your well-being and the safety and the security of this nation. They may claim otherwise. They may claim that their actions are directly related to your safety. But only a fool would believe that. If you were hustled in the street, would you believe the next person who came along and offered you the same hustle opportunity? If you do, if you're that type of person, if you're that gullible, then you would get what you ask for. You would get hustled a second time, and a third, and perhaps more. But we have an obligation to ourselves, first and foremost, but also to our nation, to make sure that we are not willing to allow those around us to abuse us and that of our future progeny. You know, when you fight back against tyranny and you are pressured even more, oppressed, prosecuted, persecuted, and you see that those people who are your alleged representatives, who are operating diametrically opposed to your best interests, and you don't willfully step back and say, I will not support that activity, which is designed and created and built to bring about my own demise, then I have to question, where is your sense of self-preservation? I mean, you're not suicidal, are you? I mean, it's not like you've got a urgent need to hurt yourself, do you? Ignoring the truth around you, knowing that the ultimate end will lead to your destruction, is just another form of suicide. Why would you go there? Why would you feel that has value? Is it that you're lazy? Is it that you're frightened? If you're lazy, there's not much we can do to help you. You know, if you're apathetic and you're lazy, there isn't much that we, as patriots, can do to help you. But if you're acting or reacting out of fear, it's a whole nother story. Because you already know that a government that fears its people is a government that operates and functions on the basic principles of freedom. But when the people fear their government, tyranny is already about you like a cloak. So if you fear your government, you have your answer. There's no need for you to look further. There's no need for you to be concerned, to worry, to fear more. Know that it is now time for action. That it is now time for you to begin to step forth and defend yourself. You know, even someone who's interested in suicide would ordinarily not be willing to sacrifice their family to achieve their goal. Yet the actions of most Americans, the apathy of most Americans, the lack of action, the lackadaisical failure tells me that they are weak. They're not only interested in committing suicide and willing to do almost anything to achieve that end, but they're willing to allow their family to be taken with them. And that makes the cowardice of suicide pale in comparison. Please find us on the internet. You can catch us at americasvoicenow.org. You can also find us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. We also put every program that we do, we stream it live. We stream live over our website, and we stream live on the web on the internet for those stations that are carrying us, and also for anyone who wants to, who's not in our terrestrial broadcast area, to be able to catch the show live. But we also record it and then post it up on YouTube, where you can go on there and look at it, catch a show that you missed or what have you. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family members. You can find that by going to youtube.com/AVN facebook.com/America's Voice Now. So we encourage you to do that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to touch on a couple of other issues, including the budget that is about to be dumped on us. The budget discussions should really change the nature of the political discussion in the next month or so.